All right, guys, welcome back to the Airpreneur Airbnb YouTube channel where we talk about how to achieve financial freedom utilizing Airbnb and short-term rentals in 2025 and beyond without having to buy properties, just by scaling with arbitrage and co-hosting, and how we did it in a year, how many of our students have achieved 10K per month plus in 6 to 12 months. That's what this channel is entirely about. So we break down the strategies and how we did that, and then we talk topics related to short-term rentals to keep you educated as to whether or not this is the right business model for you. So today what I'd like to talk about is Airbnb / short-term rentals. What is the best investment / model to help you achieve your goals, right? So we've got a few, right? We've got arbitrage, we've got co-hosting, we've got purchasing properties for short-term rentals, like purchasing Airbnbs. And within arbitrage, we have a couple of routes. We have single-family homes or apartment scaling. So we really have kind of like 4 topics to discuss here. Now, I'm going to dive on all of them. After 3+ years now of having very, very extensive experience in almost every single one of these, I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly of every single one of these models, and I love them all for certain things. So what we're going to break down are these 4 models, the pros and cons, what you should do based on your situation and your goals, and which one's the best, and what I'm personally doing now, right? So let's talk purchasing short-term rentals first. Purchasing Airbnbs, great investment model, right? Now, before you select any of these models, I think it's very important to get clear on your goals. Is your goal to generate a lot of cash flow now so you can get back your time and your freedom? Or is your goal to try and generate, try to build long-term equity so you set yourself up for retirement and then some? Now, this is going to depend on where you're at in life. For somebody who's probably younger, like 40 and younger, who just wants to generate a ton of cash flow to free up your time, quit your 9 to 5, just build a completely remote business. Arbitrage and co-hosting are way faster than trying to buy properties to do it. It's way faster. I don't need to pay for, put 50 to 100K down to buy a property. And all I have to do is rent them and co-list them and then make a profit, right? So it's way higher cash flow, way lower risk, and just way faster to the cash flow path. But if your goal is okay, I want cash flow, but I also want the long-term equity, and I'm willing to play a little bit of the longer game, then purchasing is really where this will come into play. Now, there is a way to blend both, and I'll talk about that. But at the end of the day, let's talk about purchasing short-term rental properties, right? So when you're purchasing short-term rental properties, the challenge that I see with a majority of people that attempt to do this is they have zero experience in finding a short-term rental property that they know will make money, running it the right way, and making sure that it will make a high cash flow, right? And the importance of this, buying a short-term rental property is the riskiest way to get into short-term rentals. Now, I do think it is the best of both worlds. You get the equity and you get the high cash flow, but most people who enter that world have never run a short-term rental before. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to find a good one. And then they get one. It ends up not making money. They end up not doing well with it because they don't run it the right way. They don't have good operations in place. They're scrubbing toilets themselves to try to save money. It's just it's the best model, but I would not recommend going that route until you are experienced with short-term rentals, or you at least are going to buy a property and get some sort of guidance in running the business, right? Now, personally though, I see this as a great long-term play if you're going to start with arbitrage and co-hosting and then shift your way into purchasing property, right? Now, just as a refresher, for some of you guys who are a little bit newer to this channel, I achieved financial freedom in about a year and a half with Airbnb just by going the arbitrage and co-hosting route. Same with my business partner, Adam, and with many of the folks in our community, the hundreds of people that we've worked with. And how those 2 models work is very simple. Arbitrage is, I'm not going to buy a property. I'm going to rent it for what the landlord is asking, and I'm going to furnish it and list it on Airbnb. Now, I don't pay for that furniture out of pocket. I will usually just use a 0% interest credit card to finance the furniture, get it up and running, collect the cash flow, and then just rinse and repeat. And that allows you to cash flow $1,000 to $3,000 per month per property without having to buy anything. And then you can just scale as fast as you want, based on the level of credit that you have or based on the amount of cash that you're willing to put into it. So it's way lower risk. The most amount of money I'm going to put into it is the 10K for the furniture and maybe the 2 to 3K for the security deposits. And it's that versus 50 to 200,000 to buy a property. It's like the risk is not even remotely close, like at all. And the cash flow is just about the same. So it's like, why would I not start with arbitrage, right? So now, with that being said, I'm going to break down kind of the pros and cons of that. And now co-hosting is where I don't arbitrage. I don't rent the property. I find properties that are already furnished or properties that landlords already attempted to Airbnb, and then I just take over the management of it for them. And then I take a percentage. This is even less risky because I'm paying for nothing, literally nothing. I'm just acting as a property manager. And then guess what? If you're smart, you'll plug all that into your own operations to where even you don't do jack and you still collect a profit each month, right? So my point is arbitrage and co-hosting, way lower risk, way higher cash flow without needing to spend a lot of that capital. Now, with that being said, I still think purchasing the short-term rentals is the best option long-term. But the caveat is you need to know how to find a good property to do that. And you would ideally need to know how to run it the right way, because if you don't know how to run it the right way, your expenses are going to be up through the roof. Your property's not going to stay booked year round. You're not going to make as much money. And now you're pulling your hair out. Now, with that being said, buying short-term rental properties, I think as an end goal is one of the best strategies. So here's what I mean by that. I think there's a few guys out here in the short-term rental investing space that really got it dialed in, which is their experience with short-term rentals. They had capital and they ended up just buying 5, 6, 7 really high quality, high revenue short-term rental properties that make like $200K a year. That is the best end goal strategy, in my opinion, because now you've got 5, 6, 7 properties. You don't have to manage that much, right? They're each making $20K a month in revenue. Let's just say the take home's like $7K. You're making $30,000, $40,000 a month in cash flow. And now you've got 7 figures in equity. You're set. You're set for life. But in order to get there, you need capital and you need experience with running short-term rentals. So that's when I think co-hosting and arbitrage come into play, right? Now, going to arbitrage, we've got 2 strategies: single-family homes and we've got apartment scaling, right? Single-family homes is very simple. It's when I go per one house at a time. I talk to one landlord. I say, hey, I want to rent your property, and I'm going to list it as a short-term rental. I run a corporate short-term rental housing company, and I'm going to collect the difference. So if I rent the property for $2K, it does $5K a month on Airbnb. I've got $1,000 in expenses and cleaning and utilities, and then I take home $2K a month, right? That I think is one of the best beginner strategies, because you only need the $2K for that security deposit. You get a 0% interest business credit card to finance the furniture, so you don't have to pay for any of that out of pocket. And landlords want to work with you, right? Like there's this whole notion out there that landlords don't want to work with you. And honestly, I genuinely believe that notion has come from people that are just scared to talk to landlords about it. Because it's like, if I'm a landlord, what keeps me up at night? Bad tenants, late rent, evictions, the property's dirty, the property gets destroyed. I get calls in the middle of the night about the leaky toilet. Guys, if you are running an arbitrage business, a short-term rental business out of my property, all of that is gone. You make my life literally 20 times easier. And if you present that the right way to a landlord, they would be stupid to not want to work with you. So when you do present it the right way, like I do, like my community does, you get yeses left and right. So getting the yes is really not the problem, right? Where it gets a little more challenging are finding properties that have a high enough revenue margin for you to make $3K a month in cash flow, right? So that's where I think property selection becomes very important. Now, with that being said, I think this is the most beginner-friendly strategy because it's super low risk, super low capital is required. You just need that initial $2K or so to get that security deposit, and then you need to know how to find a decent property, as well as use the 0% interest credit to buy the furniture. I have plenty of videos on this channel about how to identify good properties into markets to do this, and then you just you kickstart your business off of less than 5K in a pocket, and right out of the rip on your first deal, you're going to be making 5 to 10K a month in revenue, right? In revenue, not profit, probably 1 to 3K a month in profit. But that's pretty awesome. There are very few models that allow that. Now, the cool thing is, and I've spoken about this at length on this channel, this business is so easy to automate. You need 3 tools. You get a virtual assistant to deal with your guests for $3 an hour. You plug in a software to do the pricing automation for you, so you stay booked year round. And then you get another tool that your cleaners get integrated into your units, and they get notified automatically. They have cleaning schedules, they have checklists, all that stuff. I barely tap into this business. at all, right? So arbitrage is a great, great, great method. Now, the limitation of single family homes on arbitrage though is it's slow to grow. So if I go to that property across the street and I sell that landlord and I take that deal and I'm generating 1 to 2K per month in cash flow off of it, in order for me to grow my portfolio, I've got to do it again. And then I've got to do it again. And then I've got to do it again. And then I've got to do it again. And you get where I'm going with this is if you're trying to get to 10, 20K a month, I've got to talk to 6 to 12 landlords in order to make that happen. It's a little bit slower, right? And a house is a little bit more challenging to furnish. They're a bigger project. So that's where apartment scaling and arbitrage comes into play, right? Now, what is apartment scaling? Apartment scaling, let's just say this is a lovely apartment building. I will go to this apartment building and I'll say, give me 5 apartments. I'm going to take 5 of your vacancies and I'm going to rent all 5 of them. I'm going to list them on Airbnb and collect the profit on each one. So you're doing the same thing that you're doing with that house, but you're doing it with 5 units at a time. Sometimes 10, sometimes 20. You can go click on some other videos on our channel. We've done up to 36 in one handshake, right? 36 apartments, pretty crazy. Now, the benefit of this is I grow way faster, right? Like I immediately tack on 5 units. I immediately tack on another $800 to $1,200 a month in cash flow per door, and I can just grow way more quickly. And by me taking 5 to 10 apartments with this building, they're going to give me better terms. I'm going to be able to negotiate rent for free for 1 or 2 months. I'm going to be able to negotiate lower rents. I'm going to be able to negotiate this and this and that. And I make even more money doing that. The challenge is this is a little bit more of an advanced strategy, right? If you don't have the experience with doing the houses first, this becomes a little more challenging when you're just starting out. Make sense? Because now you have to prove to the building that you're legitimate, you're actually going to follow through on your word, and you're going to run things professionally. And the easiest way to do that is by showing them that you have a portfolio. Now, we have a community, it's known as the Elite Scaling Community, where we actually, Adam and myself, will allow you to leverage us to help you land these deals by saying that you're part of our, like an extension of our company. So like if you're in something like that, then you can be a beginner and still land these types of deals. But if you're not, then of course this will be a little bit more challenging, right? So I'm totally privy to that, which is why I don't like that there are some other arbitrage or Airbnb gurus out there that say you could do this method right out of the gate. I don't think it's feasible for everybody right out of the gate. You also need a little bit more capital to play with, because if I'm furnishing 5 to 10 apartments, I'm going to need 40K, right? So my point is, great method for scaling fast as hell, but usually you have to have conquered the first beast to do that. Make sense? Now, I love this method. This is what I focus on now, but it is because I started with 19 houses first. So now co-hosting comes into play. When do I do co-hosting, and why would I do that? So just to recap, co-hosting is where I find a property that's already furnished. It's a property a landlord attempted to list on Airbnb already, and I'm just taking over the management of the property and collecting a percentage. I think this is the easiest, low risk, lowest hanging fruit method to get into short-term rentals. The only downside is it has the lowest profit potential. Because again, if we go back to that very first example, the house that's making 5K a month on Airbnb, and I'm doing co-hosting and I take a 20% cut, that means at the most, I'll take $1,000 in cash flow. Whereas if I was arbitraging it, I'd get 2K. So now, I don't think this is a bad option. As a matter of fact, if you're smart and you co-host in areas that are really high revenue properties, like a beach town or something like that, those properties make 150K a year. And now if you're taking 10 to 20% a month, that might be up to 3 to 4K in cash flow. Like, we've done it. We actually have several beach houses in New Jersey that we co-host. And in the summers, they make sometimes up to $20,000 a month in revenue. Do the math. If we're taking 20%, we make 4K in 1 month. And I paid nothing. I paid for no furniture. I'm signing no lease. I have zero risk. So that's another great method for starting out with this. And I think that's the best method for somebody who doesn't have access to cash, who doesn't have access to good credit, and you're just looking to get your feet wet and start making your first few $1,000s a month, right? Now, let's wrap this whole thing up. Which one is the best? The best is buying 5, 6, 7 really high revenue short-term rental properties. But it is a horrible option if you don't know how to find good properties and you don't know how to run them. Arbitraging single-family homes is probably the least risk with the highest reward method, and then pivoting into apartment scaling to scale like mad Co-hosting, though, is the lowest hanging fruit, least risk option, need no capital, need no credit. You just have to convince the landlords to work with you. We've got other videos in this channel on doing that. So if you guys are excited about starting your own Airbnb business, looking to achieve financial freedom in a year or less, I've got two exciting things for you, right? The first is you can go to the link below. This is the free option. We've got a complete community and course A to Z on school.com that you can join for free. That'll teach you how to land your first Airbnb arbitrage and co-hosting deal. Of course, it is a little bit more of a beginner's course. It's not going to get you to six figures and growing and complete financial freedom, but it'll give you a nice, runway on how to land your first deal. You can join that for free. Now, if you want to scale a lot faster, you want to make progress a lot quicker, and you want to work with us privately one-on-one, then you can apply to work with us via our one-on-one mentorship, where we've worked with hundreds of 9-to-5 professionals in helping them get to 10, 20, even up to 70K per month with Airbnb. There's going to be a link in the description to schedule a strategy session with my team to see if it's a fit for you. So go ahead and click that if you'd like to just kind of fast track your way. Otherwise, guys, thanks for checking this out. I'll see you next week.